In the previous video, we looked at how we sketch quadratic graphs when they're given to us in this completed format here by finding the vertex and the x-intercepts. However, we only looked at the special situation when this constant value here was equal to 0, because in those situations, the x-intercept actually occurs at the vertex. So essentially when you find the vertex, you find the x-intercept. That isn't true when we've got this constant value at the end here that's not equal to 0. So let's take a look at how we solve it when we've got this situation. Now we start like we did the last time by identifying where the vertex occurs. Now the vertex is nice and simple to find. The x coordinate is the opposite sign of what's inside my brackets here, so it's -1, and the y coordinate is the same sign as my constant value at the end here. So my vertex is going to occur at the coordinate -1 and 4. Now to find my y-intercept, we do the exact same as we did previously. We find when x is equal to 0. So essentially we substitute 0 back into the top here. So my y will equal -2 times 0 plus 1, it's just 1, all squared, plus 4. Now this is going to be -2 plus 4 is +2. So my y-intercept is at 2. Now my x-intercept occurs the opposite of this. My x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. So we want to solve this when my y is equal to 0. So essentially 0 is going to equal -2 times x plus 1 all squared plus 4. And we want to solve this from here. So to do that, I need to subtract 4 from both sides. So -4 will equal -2 x plus 1 all squared. Then I need to divide both sides here by this -2 to get rid of that. So -4 divided by -2 will be +2, will equal my x plus 1 all squared. I then need to square root both sides, keeping in mind that when I do the square root, it's going to have a positive and a negative answer. So I need to do the plus minus of the square root of 2. So you get x plus 1. So I need to subtract 1 from both sides to get x on its own. So my x is going to equal -1 plus or minus the square root of 2. Now this will produce me two different values, which are the x-intercepts of the graph. So therefore the x-ints are -1 plus or minus the square root of 2. So now we can use this information here to sketch the graph of this quadratic. I always start with these by the y-intercept first, so putting that in here. Then I locate where the vertex would occur in relation to the y-intercept. So it's at -1, 4, so -1, 4 needs to be above this 2 here. So it's approximately here. Now I can see here from the axes of symmetry that this is going to need to cut the x-axis on this side of the y-axis and then cut it over here as well. So I actually sketch my graph from the information I've got now. And then I indicate where my x-intercepts actually occur. So to find this one here, this is when I'm adding. This one over here is when I'm subtracting. So this one here is going to be when it's -1 plus the square root of 2. This one here is going to be when it's -1 subtract the square root of 2. And now I just fill in the remaining information, so my labels of all the graphs. So in summary, when we've got these graphs in this completed square format and we're wanting to sketch them using the vertex and the axes intercepts, we start by finding the vertex, which is the opposite sign of inside the brackets, same sign of outside the brackets for our coordinate. We then look at what the y-intercept is when x is equal to 0, so we substitute 0 in for our x value and solve for y. Then to find the x-intercepts, we want to know when y is equal to 0, what does x equal? So we substitute 0 in for our y and then solve for our x. Once we've got that, we sketch our quadratic onto our graph here. I've just realised I've forgotten an important point, which is the vertex. So that's -1, 4. You do need to include this point in your graph. But essentially, I always start by the y-intercept, then locate where the vertex would be in relation to that, sketch the graph, and then indicate where the x-intercepts occur. Keep in mind when there's two of them, like we've got here, the right-hand one will always be when we're adding, the left-hand one will always be when we're subtracting.